Hello friends, welcome to Testing Shala YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to explain what are the 7 principles in software testing. This is very important interview questions they may ask for you when you're attending any interview questions. Can you tell me what are those 7 important principles in software testing? If you are visiting further, if you visited Testing Shala YouTube channel for the first time, then please click on subscribe and bell notification so that all our future videos related to software testing will be in your inbox. That would help you to enhance your software testing skills. So let's move on to understand what are those 7 important principles in software testing. Let's go by one to understand what is all about it. First one is early testing. The first principle in software testing is early testing. Early testing is nothing but when we start the testing in early phase. Early phase means if you are thinking about SDLC, if you will have something like this, right? You have SDLC, this is SDLC, then we have requirement, then followed by designs, then followed by coding, then testing. Early testing is nothing but when we start the testing from the requirement phase itself. That is where we call it as a early testing. When we start the testing from the requirement phase, then cost of the fixing those issues will be very less compared to when we are identifying a defect in the testing phase. That is where the software testing principles always tell to the experts, saying that please start the testing in the early phase itself. When we start the testing in the requirement gathering phase itself, then whatever the issues we identify, if we fix it there and there itself, the cost of the development and cost of the fixing the issues in the later stage would be very less. So that is the first principle of early testing. Then the second important principle is testing shows presence of the defect. So whenever we test, so we always ensure that we try to find out a new issues. That is our goal. As a individual testers, whenever we give a product, when we test that product, our goal is to ensure that we find as much as defect from that product or an application to ensure that there are many defects which are there in the system. That is the goal of software testing all the time. Even when the product is released to the customer, even that time also, if somebody tries to follow the process of software testing to find the issues, still they can find issue. So that is the principle of software testing. Anytime you are going to test the product or an application, you can definitely find the defects as and when we test, because we test it in a different angle, different way, different perspective, then we can find out the defect all the time. That is where we won't say whatever the product we ship, which is not 100% defect free or a bug free. There will always be a defect in the system as and when we test the product. That is the second important principle of software testing. Then the third important principle of software testing is exhaustive testing is not possible. Exhaustive testing is nothing but all possible combination of a given test case. Let's take example of a login page where we have two fields, username and password, then login button. Here you can give thousands of combinations for username, thousands of combinations for password to validate the user page. You can generate as much test data possible to test all these things, but if you want to test in a realistic manner, we cannot go and test all combinations because there is a constraint on the time, there is a constraint on the resources, right? With all these limitations, we can always say we cannot perform the testing in an exhaustive testing perspective. We only go with the prioritization or critical issues or risk-based testing. That is where we normally follow because there is no end to it. As and when we start testing, we find more issues. That is where we all the time we focus on risk-based testing or prioritized testing. That is the third principle of software testing. Then the fourth important principle of software testing is defect clustering. So what is meant by defect clustering? Let's say if you have a product, something like this. So you may have 5 features, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? This is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, this is E, right? Now, most of the time we are able to find issues, let's say only E module, and other modules are relatively little stable. That means whenever we are putting a test strategy or a test approach, we should always keep in mind which area is not stable or which area is very much stable. Then we can put the test optimization or our test approach in a more effective way. When we put our test strategy or efforts in more effective way, that means we will be focusing more testing in the where the area which is getting impacted, that is in this case is E module. That is where we are able to find more issues or which is not stable. That means we should always focus on the defect clustering, and we divide the modules, and based on our history, maybe in the beginning we may not have this data, but as we start testing the product, then we will start getting this data in a more structured manner, and we have to bring an optimization or strategize our testing in such a way that our more testing effort should go towards the more issues where we are finding, and wherever system is stable, then we may not be putting so much effort in our testing. So that is the fourth testing principle in software testing. So let's move on to the fifth important testing principle is pesticide paradox. Pesticide paradox is nothing but, let's say if you have 10 test cases, when you are executing these 10 test cases, every time you should not find a new defects. Because let's say we executed these 10 test cases in release 1, then release 2, then release 3. When you are executing these test cases, you may not be able to find any defects or bugs. Then it is always good to revisit these test cases if updation is required, or if required modification, or if requires any correction, then we should make the appropriate correction to those test cases just to ensure that we can find the issues. So that is the principle of software testing, which is pesticide paradox. This is the fifth important principle. Then sixth important principle is testing is context dependent. Testing is context dependent is nothing but, let me take some example. When we are testing the product such as a mobile application or a web application or a desktop application, our way of test strategy or test approach is completely different. We cannot use the same strategy which we developed for mobility and we cannot use for web application, or the strategy which used in the web application cannot be used for e-commerce application, right? Because we have to bring different strategy, different approach based on the application we are going to test it. That is the sixth principle of software testing. That is the sixth principle. Then the last principle of software testing is absence of errors policy. Absence of error policy is nothing but, even if we develop a product which is completely error free, you can say 99% error free, but whatever we implemented, whatever the implemented features or application which does not conforms to requirement based on the whatever customer requirement has given or end user requirement, if it is not implemented, even though the product is 100% or 99% bug free, but is of no use, because the product which is being developed here which is not meeting the client requirement here. So that is the seventh principle of software testing. That means we should test anything which is related to the requirement only, not outside the requirement. That is the seventh principle of software testing. I hope you clearly get hold of all the 7 principles in software testing. Let me recap it. The 7 principle of software testing is nothing but early testing. Test shows presence of defects. Exhaustive testing is not possible. Defect clustering. Pesticide paradox. Testing is context dependent. Absence of errors policy. These are the 7 important software testing principles. I hope you are able to get hold of all these 7 principles in software testing. If you like this video, please click on like button. If you have visited Testing Shala YouTube channel for the first time, then please click on subscribe and bell notification so that all our future videos related to software testing will be in your inbox. That would help you to enhance your software testing skills. Thanks for watching this video. Bye for now. Take care.